to look back at the last 3 months, ever since Kamala Harris came onto the Democratic ticket. So I'm not taking the Biden out of this equation, and Kamala Harris is replacing Biden out of the equation. What are the two things in the last 3 months about this election 2024 that glared at you, that stood out for you, that made you laugh, perhaps, or that shocked you? And I'm just going to go around the table once. Can I start with you? Can I start with you, Alex?
Sure, I've thought about this a lot. On the Trump side, I think that two political stunts that they pulled fairly recently are, I think they're fantastic. I think that they are in the grand tradition of electioneering and campaign stunts, and that's the garbage truck stunt. I thought it was wonderful, and the McDonald's stunt. That's exactly what they are, and that's great. That's what they're supposed to do. They're campy. They are perfectly Donald Trump in every way. And the picture of Donald Trump in a McDonald's apron, sitting outside of or standing inside, waving goodbye to a customer, is an iconic photo that I think will outlast this election. So those two, and I think the third one and the biggest one, and I'm sure that this will be repeated, is the fight moment
No,
on July
yeah,
13th
yeah.
when
I thought
Donald
you. I
Trump.
thought. I thought you would start with that because that sort of. But actually, frankly, after there were three assassination attempts, so to speak. But that is not the main rhetoric of this election at all. What do you think about that, Vlada?
Well, it is reflective of, the rhetoric that has happened from the Democratic side, not just in this election, but over the last few years. I mean, there's been a political kind of witch hunt. But what's really surprised me is Harris choosing Tim Walz as her VP candidate instead of the governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro. She needs Pennsylvania much more than she needs Minnesota. So if you want to talk about shocking, the assassination was shocking to me, but quite frankly, I don't want to say it was expected, but we could have thought that would have happened because of how ugly the rhetoric has been over the last 4 years and the political witch hunt which has ensued. But the Tim Walz choice for vice president for Kamala Harris was definitely something that was shocking to me. She really does need Pennsylvania, and I think she could have chosen a much better vice presidential candidate. So that was just, personally shocking. The rhetoric coming out of, one side of this has been very damaging, but that's not shocking, unfortunately. What is shocking is her vice presidential candidate, in my opinion.
And one turning point, according to you, in this last 3 months, and one point that you felt, okay, this is the moment that will change this election, will turn this election.
Well, I have to say that, you would think that the assassination attempt would be that point. But actually, I felt like the line of comments, which were really interesting, starting with the comedian in Puerto Rico to the point where Biden reacted to that and called Trump supporters garbage. That was a huge turning point. And then, a huge piggybacking off of that was Mark Cuban's comment. I don't think that was a critical turning point of the election, but it was certainly a point as we're going into election day. Trump is already trending. That only helps his trend line go up. And I agree with Alex. The PR stunts were fantastic. He brilliantly played into the McDonald's stunt and the garbage truck stunt. Those were fantastic. But I do think that those things only helped the Trump trending line.
What about on the Harris side? I'd like to hear your views on that too. Was there
For
a
the Harris.
yes? Was there an exceptional moment in her campaign, according to you? And what?
I don't know that I'd call it exceptional, but I think everybody believed that with the Obamas coming out and stumping for her and being incredibly supportive, that there would just be this dynamic boost. But I think it partially backfired, which I think was a bit of a turning point also in her campaign. And that's when Barack Obama went after the males. I think you saw in the Black community a bit of disgust on his kind of chastising of the Black male voter. And so I don't actually think that helped so much. I do think that, her strong focus on certain issues, that appeal to women were great. I just don't think that that is actually going to, make the final difference on election day. She is losing male voters. That is where she is struggling. And so I think it didn't help her. But I do think that the Obamas were supposed to be a huge support for her. And unfortunately, they just were not. And she's made so many gaffes. I think a big gaffe that she made during this election is during the hurricane, going on a podcast talking about relationships and sex lives. And that's just very tone deaf. The American people are struggling. People lost their homes in the Carolinas. And that's just really, really unfortunate. And that was very tone deaf of her. I think it was a gaffe in her election and not a good moment for her.